But this is the best part. You have to use technology as well.
Okay.
So yes, I think it's recording. So can you?
Okay, I'll say that again.
Yeah.
Whenever you put a map into a publication or on a poster, it's not just a question of showing all the data you collected. It's a process of telling a story. What's the story that this map tells me? In this case, water flows from the north to south through the road system on a gentle slope. You might even know the percent, approximately 7% from north to south. And our goal in this design is to trap water and let it percolate back into this aquifer when possible, and hold it in such a way that it doesn't cause damage if you can't let it percolate. That's really what you want. So although there's a map of contours and renders, really, what's the diagram of the purpose of my design? Oh, last Kuchen. Vielen Dank. It's really, here's the place for a diagram that says, I want in this area, there's contours that go like this, there's water that goes like that, and I need some parks in between. That's the diagram. It's very simple. This is all the detail. The computer needs that, but the human being doesn't need that. I don't know what all this 40 and 35 and 32 and 30 all means. It's too complicated. But that's very clear. Anybody who knows what a contour line is can understand that. And that helps to tell your story graphically at the same time as in your text. You tell your story in words and maybe even in workflow in a model maker model that says, you know, collect water flow accumulation and so on. So when you get to these things, again, they just look like little clips of that other map, and I don't get it at all. It's just a bunch of numbers. I don't know if there are houses here, or a schoolyard, or existing parks. That's what these should show. You've shown the data, but you haven't shown the information. Do you know the difference?
Yeah, I understood. What do you mean? The
data is any measurement. 40, 30, exactly. Black. Information is, what does it mean? High, low, wide, narrow, right? Yeah. That's what human beings, computers work with data. Human beings work with information. Information, and they need knowledge to make sense of it. Oh, I know that a playground is a great place to have a water body. The middle of a commercial parking lot is not.
Yeah, exactly, right?
So that's, so if you can have some of these words rather than just all of these numbers, right? Yeah. It'll be much more, your story is easier to tell. Your poster is easier to read. Let's go back to your poster in here. You know, I told you, I did spend some time on it. I looked at it, I figured out approximately what you were doing, but I couldn't figure out everything, of course, because there's not enough story. There's just data here. And then I finally said, but there's too much. This type is too small for me to read. Even when you made it A1, I still couldn't read it without getting my magnifying glass out. I want on a poster, I want the big ideas. The linear logic says, I start here and I end there, and maybe it's branching. I start here and I end 3 different places, but whatever, it's got to be simple diagram of the flow. And now, so basically I think all of this is saying, I found places that are suitable locations. I still don't know how. How did you know what made it suitable? Tell me now. How did you pick these 4? How did you pick these 4? What is it about them that made them be picked? Did you just look at it and say, I think it should be there?
No.
So how did you pick them?
It's because of their elevations, because of their
elevations, 72, 50? No, because what about their elevations?
It's like the slope, the gradient where the roads, where the streets are taking, like ultimately the best place where I'll find the least gradient is, the least elevation is, that is the place.
Wait, elevation and gradient are 2 different things.
Oh, sorry, elevation is
the lowest elevation.
The lowest elevation.
It's going to be where the water will be.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're really looking for it, and it's not even the lowest elevation. You're looking for places that are natural ponds.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, because this is not the lowest elevation, but that's where the water's going to pile up.
Exactly.
Like natural depressions.
Pond,
so you found some natural depressions.
Exactly.
That's a word that I can understand. Now I get it. I believe you. These are natural depressions. But if you just show these numbers, there's nothing that tells that, right?
Absolutely.
And even perhaps a cross section, such as I just drew, it says there's going to be a little natural depression here and a little natural depression here. That's where the water's going to end up. Therefore, that's where I have to give it a place to either get into the ground or be stored or run off in some controlled way to the next place down the street. And that's this. So partly your story is what happens to water when it comes in at the north as it works its way toward. And isn't it the sea? Doesn't it eventually go to the sea?
No, this is another part.
Where's Karachi on this one?
This is also Karachi, but it's a coastal barrier. Actually, it's a.
Where's this land here? It's somewhere up in here?
No, it's not here.
Not.
It's another district. It's here somewhere.
But isn't that the ocean?
It's the ocean.
So this water is eventually going to the sea.
Yeah.
All water eventually goes to the sea.
Not all, but most of
all
it.
overland flow water eventually goes to the sea,
exactly.
and we call it rivers.
Yeah.
And sometimes we call it wetlands.
Wetlands.
As it gets there and swampy.
Yeah.
Right. So the story is water is falling from the sky in the north, flowing to the sea in the south. Hello.
Hello. Sorry.
Thanks.
So, in terms of telling your story, I think it's really good to start with some simple words, simple diagrams at the beginning. Not a big block of text and very detailed stuff. Start with something simple. It gets me to, oh, this is a story about how he's going to handle water in Karachi. Spatial and sensible planning of Canada. One piece of that is trapping stormwater.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's one chapter of the story is trapping stormwater.
Yeah,
that's one thing you have to do.
Yeah.
Then maybe there are some other parts of it, right? That you get to. Now tell me about these little designs.
These little designs actually are designed. The neighborhood park here is these. This is for this is one large city park where the people will going to come, and then there's one is neighborhood park. This one, and there's a 50 playground like that, and some garden and square around with the area of 99 square kilometer should be, and these places would be in that depression area where we could do that, and that was my point is. And here I created.
Is that the only criterion, or are there other criteria as well?
They are fulfilling the criteria of population demand as well, like from.
But no, by spatial location. Yeah, I got the idea that it should be in a natural pond, but what else? Near a school?
Or
far from a school?
That's
near a parking lot or far from a parking lot,
Yeah,
right? So there could be other criteria that help you find it, or help your GIS to find it.
Yeah. That's what here it is in this neighborhood park. This criteria has been already defined. Like neighborhood parks would be near to the hospital. Like schools or the open spaces would be near to the houses.
Right.
It's already been defined.
Great. So that's missing from the poster, I think. And some way to simply put it in a series of small diagrams or keywords, right? Trap stormwater in accessible parks near to school areas and far from commercial districts. That's one sentence that says a lot.
Yeah, it's
in a way
really
that can
high
understand,
impact. Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Okay. All right. So you detailed each one of them out?
Yeah.
Are they connected? Does the water flow from one to the next?
Exactly. Yeah. But I haven't mentioned it.
Is there any blue arrow that says water comes from the south and goes down, and then it goes down?
Yeah,
and
that
it goes
would
down,
be that would
and
be
it goes
great.
down. Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah,
and it would make us think that maybe this one needs the most capacity because it's the biggest, because it's going to have the most water because it's furthest downstream, and this one could be the smallest. Right now, this appears to be the biggest, and that's the smallest, so maybe that's confusing. But maybe the more you can, and if you started with a few diagrams like this over here, then we'd see the same diagram here, and I see what he's doing. It's making it work together, and Okay, very cool. And then. This is a totally different project.
Yeah, it's a totally
here?
different project.
So what was it doing on this poster?
Yeah, because it's the spatial and sensible planning of the chaotic. It's
the whole thing.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. The city is facing,
lots of different things.
Lots of different things. This pluvial flooding, and they have and sea intrusion. It's over there. Population heat wave happened. 1,200 people have been died just because of heat wave. So this is so much chaotic planning we are doing over there. So I'm trying to find.
Okay, but so in that sentence we had before, trapping water in green parks, which also serve to diminish the effects of urban heat islands.
Heat
and so on.
island
So without making your sentence too big, you make it have almost everything that's important in it. And there's maybe 3 parts to this, right? As part of this overall spatial and sensible planning, we have 1 water, and we have 2 recreation, and we have 3 heat, and we may have 4 agriculture, and we may have 5 transportation. And no more than 7. 7 is the maximum number for anything. There's a very famous paper called The Magic Number 7.
Magic number 7.
More or less, in which a psychologist gave people just a list of things and said, remember this list: apple, banana, orange, pear, grape. Say it again.
Apple, banana, orange, pear, grape.
Good. That was 5.
Yeah.
If I went up to 10, you couldn't do it anymore. And
couldn't.
most people would stop at about 7.
Yeah,
so 7
exactly.
is how many things you can hold in your brain at one time. So never put more than 7 big headings in anything.
Okay.
In a paper or an outline or a poster, especially anything that's graphic and visual. Yeah, okay.
So this is the sea intrusion thing, because we are depleting the mangroves and
how is it related? Does this water have anything to do with that?
Yeah, because my my criteria was like, from this thing I'm holding the excessive water.
So the sea intrusion is because of the depletion of the aquifer, and so you're
that's what I'm
emphasizing the restoration of the aquifer to prevent the sea intrusion over here.
That's
you need that cross-section diagram right up here.
Okay.
That says, here's the problem. The problem is that Karachi is sucking all the water out for all of its people.
These building foundations.
Things that should be flowing into the ground are now being turned into overland flow because we put down paving. Well-known problem with impermeable surfaces. So we need to create more permeability so that we get more done here, so we restore the aquifer so that the water doesn't come in, so the mangrove survives.
Exactly.
That's your whole sentence.
Yeah, this is passive, and this is active, and this is passive.
Right. No, I get it. But so then it's not completely different. It's a different scale of view on this. And you've got the cross section, you've got the larger map, you've got the little map, and it's the whole story there. Yeah. Right. And it's partly how you label it. I mean, this is okay, but it doesn't really tell me anything. Spatial and sensible and planning and chaotic metropolitan, that's just words. I don't yet know that it's about water or about sea intrusion. Or, I mean, maybe you could have been talking about a different way of organizing grocery markets. And it could be also spatial and sensible planning, but we don't know what it is, right? So this is kind of very colorful, but completely empty of meaning. Yeah. Sometimes you can have a subtitle, Make your fancy title and then say, water for recreation and sea level intrusion protection or something. So you have your fancy title, or you either flip it around and let that be your title and let this just be the subtitle. This is one example of spatial and sensible planning.
That's great.
Yeah, I like very descriptive and meaningful words. If I just say spatial planning, it doesn't mean anything at all. It might mean the name of a course or your discipline. But as soon as you get into the course, nobody's going to ever take what is. One aspect of spatial planning is thinking about road networks. Let's talk about road networks now. Another aspect of spatial planning is understanding the distribution of agriculture in the landscape. Let's talk. So, put meaningful words rather than big empty words. What else can I tell you?
It's such a brief, detailed review of my thing. I couldn't able to get that, but it's really nice of you. So what do you say generally about this thing? Because this city doesn't have anything like nothing digital model. I created all the data on my own.
Bravo.
OpenStreetMap.
I congratulate you on that. That is always, when we started this work, to do a project such as this, we would say 85% of the effort is going to go into just collecting the data. Yeah. And maybe we'll have 10 or 15% of the time left to actually do some design or think about it.
Exactly.
In many cases now in the world, more data is more available, so that number doesn't have to be so high as 85. No. But sometimes it still does, especially in what we call the developing world.
Which
is where you're living and working, and that's important.
Yeah, that's
and that's why there's so many interesting new technologies with drones and with OpenStreetMap. One reason that OpenStreetMap works is because it's open source. It's not just one person. It's tens of thousands of people. One guy says, this bridge is out, and makes a map. And so it works. That's what the beauty of open source and public source stuff. So I understand that it's a huge amount of work. I applaud you for doing so much work. You have to always think about, how can I maximize the real work? Maybe sometimes you don't take on the entire city. Maybe sometimes you say, I'm just going to do one small district and start there, because of that much I can do in the time that I've got. And the other will just be, I'll point to something. If I had 6 more of me, they could be working up there and there and there. In the same way that OpenStreetMap, you start the project called Open Karachi Transformation, and you say, here's one small piece of it, here's a big idea. All you fellow people from Karachi, you do your district, you do your place. Let's talk. Here's an example. Show me what you can do. Build the network.
Exactly. That's what my idea was about. Like, it has 26 districts. That means 26 different councillors.
Exactly.
And if I give one plan to one councillor, and then he will do that.
Or you do one a year, and then you'll be 50 years old before you're done.
Exactly. it's
well,
huge...
some people do it that way, so it could also work.
Great.
And maybe you speed up after you get 13 of them done. Some other people say, hey, that guy's got a good idea. I want my... My colleague in China, who's doing this kind of work, frankly, in China, a different situation from Karachi, of course, but similar in many ways. Beijing has exactly the same water problem.
Yeah,
exactly. In many ways.
Urban cities have the similar problem
everywhere in the world.
Throughout the world.
If you become a specialist in this kind of work, my friend, you will be busy the rest of your life. I'm sorry to say. But he does a lot of work by getting the mayor interested in a project. And the mayor does the project. And the next town mayor looks at that and says, hey, his town got that thing, I want one too. So that's another way of kind of understanding the political system. Maybe being a bit of a politician yourself.
I have to.
Cause the public interest and
into it. That's what my point is. Like, the discussion of telling the city, the mindset of the city was, we are not in a stable political situation. We have to create that. And this is the best part about this subject I really like. It's like, you have to be a little bit politically moved.
Indeed, a lot.
So that's what my topic was about, and this is I'm really thanks. It's like pleasure for me. I become really speechless. The way you understood my idea, it's marvelous. It was marvelous. When I was talking to Mr. Peach, because he was supervised everything, and when I was talking to that, he said, "What are you doing?" It's a geodesign. I said, okay. Then I went back. I've been following Carl's times, but when I came back and I read everything, I watched his tutorials, YouTube, went through that again, and I said, oh yeah, they can understand my language. I cannot express my feeling the way once somebody understands what I'm doing.
Well, that's why we have a discipline that tries to have a language. That's the purpose of his book, is to get people thinking this way, and then you can give a copy of the book to the mayor, and so on.
Exactly.
I'm going to go drink a beer with Professor Blumen.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Professor. And I'm going for the presentation as well in China.
Oh yeah, which one?
It's about Ocean, WCO, World Congress of Ocean.
Oh, good, excellent.
And it's
you mentioned this to me. Great, good. There's so many of them.